what happens is if people go into a trial believing the firepower on the prosecution is so strong, I mean, let's say on a scale of 1 to 100, it's a 95 that it's so strong, but it goes down to an 88. That helps the defense because everybody goes in thinking, wow, they're going to prove this, and they're going to prove this, and they're going to prove this, and all of a sudden, none of it's there. I think that actually helps the defense.
Well, Bill and Sade, accepting a plea agreement would mean that Sean Combs would have to admit to trafficking and force. And today he made it very clear that was not going to happen. Diddy maintained all along these encounters involved consenting adults and plans to take his chances that a jury agrees.
Music mogul Sean Diddy Combs back behind bars, a magistrate judge denying him bail, saying that there were no conditions that she could conceive of that would make her confident that he would appear again for other court appearances. The judge saying, my concern is this is a crime that happens behind closed doors.
The last hearing before Sean Combs' trial starts, when he walked into federal court today, he appeared to be looking for his family. They've pretty much been at all of the hearings that I've been to, but there was no presence of his sons or his mother or his sister who had previously been at those hearings.
Mr. Combs feels A, he's innocent, which is why he's not going to plead guilty. B, he's going to be truthful about this case because he wants to portray that to the people who have loved him his whole life. And I think he also feels an obligation to people in general. Maybe it's black people, maybe it's white people, maybe it's anybody who's ever felt aggrieved and targeted by the government. He feels an obligation to those people to say, you know what, maybe I can break the model. Maybe I can show the world that a black man can win, in federal court. And I think he probably is the only person I know of who might be able to actually accomplish that.
At trial, Combs will ditch the jail garb and wear ordinary clothes, as his lawyers argue the evidence shows consenting adults being intimate in their own way.
Do you still think that, because there is this public perception, that there are celebrity tapes involved in this case?
No.
Do you still think that there are minors involved in this case?
I'm certain no.
Okay.
And again, when you say this case, we're talking the criminal case.
The criminal case.
In the
correct.
criminal,
I know that.
In the criminal case,
right.
No.
Federal trafficking, racketeering, and charges beginning Monday morning.
Major developments tonight involving the case against Sean Diddy Combs, what he decided in court today, and what this now means, the move coming just 4 days before his trial is set to begin. Here's Aaron Katursky.
Tonight, Sean Combs makes it official. He's rejecting the government's offer to plead guilty and spare himself the possibility of a prolonged term in prison. When asked if he turned down the offer, Combs answered, "Yes, I do, Your Honor," as he stood in a baggy beige jail uniform. Terms were not disclosed, but prosecutors did say a plea could result in a shorter sentence for Combs than if he's convicted.
Isn't that, to my mind, that's one of the bigger hurdles in selecting a jury this coming week, is that there is, at least anecdotally, when I talk to people, they have that opinion, strongly held opinion, that there's celebrity tapes, that they've kind of conflated Epstein, and you mentioned Ghislaine Maxwell and all of these things into Diddy. There's this idea that somehow this is Epstein redux or something.
Would you be open to a plea bargain?
Well, it's not up to me. It's up to Mr. Combs, and I don't see it happening.
Why?
Because he believes he's innocent. He believes he's innocent, and what's more, he believes that he needs to stand up, not just for himself, for his family, and for everybody who's been targeted by the federal government.
What made you come here to support Puff?
I'm supporting Puff because he's innocent. And I'm wholeheartedly believing his innocence, and I know he's innocent. So
you say you know he's innocent?
1,000%.
He knows the deck is stacked against him. They've got a ton of evidence. Take the plea deal, dude. Just take it.
Well, my guess is that, because we don't know the deal of the plea deal. At least I don't think we do.
True.
Okay.
She did. And when the judge did, Diddy, who was sitting at the defense table with his attorneys, did not show any signs of emotion. He took a sip of water before he was led out of the courtroom by the U.S. Marshals. Now, his lawyers have vowed to fight this. They are going to be back in court on Wednesday before the judge who will oversee this trial and try to get Diddy to be released.
Now, as far as jury selection goes, I think the biggest takeaway for me is that both sides expect to have all of this done in the matter of 3 days. Now, given just how high profile this trial is, I was kind of stunned that they seem very confident that they will be able to seat a jury in that amount of time.
The decision guarantees Combs will face trial beginning just 4 days from now that will test whether one of music's most prolific figures used his power, wealth, and fame to exploit both women and men for decades.
This is going to be such a massive trial, like maybe the biggest Hollywood trial. God knows which way it's going to go. Is it going to go on for weeks? And
for sure, weeks.
How can you support your father? How do you support him moving forward?
Diddy's lawyers had argued that he had made good faith efforts by showing up in New York ready to surrender to face these charges, but prosecutors said that he could not be trusted, that he has a history of trying to intimidate witnesses, including some who are going to be witnesses in this case. They urged the judge to remand him.
We have the latest from federal court in the Sean Combs criminal case. Status of jury selection, what Diddy's going to be wearing, violation of a gag order, rejecting a plea offer.
A cavernous federal courtroom, fluorescent lights buzzing like distant hornets, fell into pin-drop silence as Sean Diddy Combs adjusted a sagging beige jumpsuit. Judge Arun Subramanian asked a question that could shrink decades of chart-topper glory into a single line on a rap sheet. Mr. Combs, do you accept the government's plea? Diddy raised his chin, eyes fixed forward, no entourage, no revolving stage lights, no Ciroc billboards, just raw defiance. Yes, I do, refuse your honor. 4 syllables, 4 days before trial. The room exhaled, prosecutors shuffled paper, defense attorneys locked jaws. Outside, camera shutters clattered like summer rain on tin, and just like that, hip-hop's consummate dealmaker tore the last deal in half. But to understand why that single answer could pulverize an empire, why global brands are already scrubbing ad copy, and streaming giants are rewriting playlists, we need to travel back through 3 decades of triumph, turbulence, and whispered nightmares. Picture mid-90s Manhattan. Club basements vibrating with bass heavy enough to rattle taxi hubcaps, mixtapes hawked from Saturn sedans double-parked on 125th. In that sonic jungle, a 20-something Sean Combs, freshly ejected from Uptown Records for creative clashes, pressed record on destiny. Bad Boy Records wasn't just a label, it was a cultural air raid. Biggie's hypnotic flow, Faith Evans' honey vocals, Ma Dollar E's velvet swagger, each release detonated across radio playlists. By the turn of the millennium, Diddy had sidestepped every gatekeeper. Grammy wins, MTV marathons, a fashion line that smuggled streetwear into Saks. In 2017, Forbes crowned him the planet's highest-paid celebrity, estimating annual haul at $130 million. Fans saw the glitz, yacht parties off St. Barth's, whiteout Hampton soirees, a tequila smile flashing from awards show balconies. Few noticed the small print buried beneath sponsorship banners, NDAs, black badge security protocols, and guest lists curated like nuclear codes. Fewer still cared. After all, Bad Boy wasn't selling transparency, it was selling fantasy, and fantasy paid in platinum plaques. Yet every stratospheric rise hides the fuse of its own implosion. Diddy's fuse began to spark in shadows long before the first lawsuit hit the clerk's desk. But champagne corks can muffle only so much static. And by 2023, the static cracked loud enough for the whole world to hear. Picture mid-90s Manhattan. Club basements vibrating with bass heavy enough to rattle taxi hubcaps, mixtapes hawked from Saturn sedans double-parked on 125th. In that sonic jungle, a 20-something Sean Combs, freshly ejected from Uptown Records for creative clashes, pressed record on destiny. Bad Boy Records wasn't just a label, it was a cultural air raid. Biggie's hypnotic flow, Faith Evans' honey vocals, Ma Dollar E's velvet swagger, each release detonated across radio playlists. By the turn of the millennium, Diddy had sidestepped every gatekeeper. Grammy wins, MTV marathons, a fashion line that smuggled streetwear into Saks. In 2017, Forbes crowned him the planet's highest-paid celebrity, estimating annual haul at $130 million. Fans saw the glitz, yacht parties off St. Barth's, whiteout Hampton soirees, a tequila smile flashing from awards show balconies. Few noticed the small print buried beneath sponsorship banners, NDAs, black badge security protocols, and guest lists curated like nuclear codes. Fewer still cared. After all, Bad Boy wasn't selling transparency, it was selling fantasy, and fantasy paid in platinum plaques. Yet every stratospheric rise hides the fuse of its own implosion. Diddy's fuse began to spark in shadows long before the first lawsuit hit the clerk's desk. But champagne corks can muffle only so much static. And by 2023, the static cracked loud enough for the whole. At dawn on September 17, 2024, Homeland Security vans coasted toward Holmby Hills and Alpine, New Jersey, headlights off, tires heavy with silence. Warrants in hand, agents fanned out, seizing servers, flight manifests, surveillance drives, the digital DNA of Diddy's kingdom. By sunset, Combs was in cuffs, staring at an indictment thick enough to eclipse his memoir deal, racketeering, money laundering, and sex trafficking across state lines. Prosecutors painted a portrait of exclusivity weaponized. Invite-only parties where cell phones vanished in locked bags, NDAs swapped like coat check tickets, and VIP wristbands allegedly doubled as color-coded consent markers. The indictment cited force, fraud, or coercion as the engine behind curated photo ops. Commentary shows exploded. Memes collided with legal jargon. Investors dialed crisis PR firms on speed. Diddy pleaded, "Not guilty," eyes scanning a throng of reporters hungry for a fallen titan soundbite. Bail denied. A crime that happens behind closed doors, the magistrate warned, even under monitoring. And so the mogul whose passport pages once read like a world tour itinerary found himself confined to a concrete purgatory, counting calendar squares while prosecutors wrote the next act. Yet isolation wasn't his worst nightmare. That honor belonged to a name suddenly stamped onto the witness list, a name with stadium tours of its own. From champagne penthouses to a concrete cube, the pivot was savage. Federal marshals booked Diddy into a Brooklyn detention center whose only red carpet was a strip of industrial linoleum. Privacy, the commodity he once traded like stock, evaporated in a fluorescent hum. Daily routine shrank to 3 beats: 5 a.m. head count, chow line, lockdown. Guards referred to him as Comb Ease, mispronouncing the name that once topped Forbes. And he learned not to correct them. A swivel of metal mirrors replaced triple-pane vanity glass, plastic cups replaced crystal. He worked out obsessively, a silent rebellion against the freeze-dried menu and the cameras that still stalked him, now mounted to cinder block walls instead of red carpet rigging. For a man who built an empire on mobility, last-minute jets to Ibiza, runway pits at Paris Fashion Week, the true punishment wasn't loud. It was the hum of a door that opened only from the outside. Yet loneliness wasn't the headline. Inside that cell, he absorbed the prosecution's 42-page discovery dump. Guest list spreadsheets, NDA PDFs, sworn statements from 4 Jane Does, a male escort, and, buried on page 38, a fresh, jolting name, Justin Bieber. Because when the witness list morphs from disgruntled insiders to a global pop icon, the trial stops being a criminal proceeding and starts looking like pay-per-view culture surgery. From champagne penthouses to a concrete cube, the pivot was savage. Federal marshals booked Diddy into a Brooklyn detention center whose only red carpet was a strip of industrial linoleum. Privacy, the commodity he once traded like stock, evaporated in a fluorescent hum. Daily routine shrank to 3 beats: 5 a.m. head count, chow line, lockdown. Guards referred to him as Comb Ease, mispronouncing the name that once topped Forbes. And he learned not to correct them. A swivel of metal mirrors replaced triple-pane vanity glass, plastic cups replaced crystal. He worked out obsessively, a silent rebellion against the freeze-dried menu and the cameras that still stalked him, now mounted to cinder block walls instead of red carpet rigging. For a man who built an empire on mobility, last-minute jets to Ibiza, runway pits at Paris Fashion Week, the true punishment wasn't loud. It was the hum of a door that opened only from the outside. Yet loneliness wasn't the headline. Inside that cell, he absorbed the prosecution's 42-page discovery dump. Guest list spreadsheets, NDA PDFs, sworn statements from 4 Jane Does, a male escort, and, buried on page 38, a fresh, jolting name, Justin Bieber. Because when the witness list morphs from disgruntled insiders to a global pop icon, the trial stops being a criminal proceeding and starts looking like pay-per-view culture surgery. Until spring 2025, Justin Bieber's biggest legal worry was whether his DMV photo looked sleepy. Then prosecutors confirmed he'd volunteered to testify. Headlines detonated faster than push notifications could refresh. Yummy singer to face bad boy titan in court. How did the unlikely alliance form? 2014 to 2016. At 3 VIP acoustic afterglow parties tied to Bad Boy Europe, Bieber attends as a rising star hungry for clout. Phones surrendered at entry, black badge security, silent elevators. 2019, therapy sessions prompt him to re-examine those years, journaling details that never made tour vlogs. January 2025, federal agents cross-reference seized guest lists with transportation invoices. Bieber's name repeats, they reach out. March 2025. In a closed-door proffer, he confirms the phone-free rituals, the NDA desks, and a lingering sense that something performative was happening for a hidden lens. He stresses he never witnessed direct abuse, but the logistics alone, prosecutors believe, patch critical holes in timeline and modus operandi. Why does it matter? Jurors know Bieber. They've streamed his love ballads during breakups, played his Christmas EP on loop. If he claims an after-party felt scripted for secrecy, that anecdote carries visceral weight. Defense counter-narrative. Diddy's lawyers plan to frame Bieber as a limited sample tourist. 3 parties, 0 crimes witnessed. They'll parade photos of tech billionaire galas that also confiscate phones and demand NDAs. They'll argue that elite discretion is a luxury market norm, not a neon sign blinking conspiracy. In war room rehearsals, attorneys practice lines. Mr. Bieber, you've been to Fashion Week after parties that banned cameras, correct? Each question aims to shrink big screen drama into everyday industry protocol. Media fallout. Spotify editors prep dual playlists, Diddy Essentials, and Justice for Justin. Hashtag armies mobilize. Hashtag bad boy trial versus hashtag believers for truth. Fashion houses wonder whether a single viral soundbite might tank cologne sales timed for Father's Day. Brands, once elbow fighting for Diddy's endorsement, stash contingency ads in cloud drives labeled Plan C. And while headlines chase Bieber's orbit, 2 legal teams sharpen the blades of a battle no-play prosecution storyline: pattern, power, profit. Pattern, witnesses, from Cassie to an anonymous valet, map identical protocols, invite via trusted fixer, phone bag at the door, NDA at the velvet rope, curated vibe team inside. Power, celebrity aura, amplified compliance. If attendees balked, security whispered, that's just how exclusive parties work. Profit. Prosecutors argue Diddy filmed encounters, leveraging footage to secure loyalty, career favors for silence, playlist placement for obedience. They'll play snippets of seized surveillance, faces blurred, to prove cameras kept rolling when consent allegedly vanished. Their opening slide, Diddy's 2017 Forbes cover, Hip Hop Cash King, morphing into his 2024 mugshot. Defense's counter theme, adults, autonomy, agenda. Adults. Every participant was over 18. No minors, no gray area. Autonomy, NDA's protected brand mystique, just like Silicon Valley launch parties. Phone bans, standard for unreleased music previews. Agenda, civil plaintiffs eye blockbuster settlements, government craves a trophy conviction, media craves clicks. Their jury consultant's mantra, don't let the sensational swallow the factual. Visual aids compare bad boy event rules to backstage policies at the Grammys. They'll project a side-by-side chart. Tech mogul soiree, royal charity ball, Diddy after party, same no phones line in fine print. Jury selection chess match prosecution strikes anyone citing hashtag #MeToo activism fatigue or professing blanket reverence for self-made moguls. Defense strikes ex-fans of R. Kelly who binged docuseries and social work majors citing coursework and power dynamics. Both sides secretly hope for Gen Z jurors. Younger folks, polling shows, distrust legacy institutions equally, be it federal prosecutors or chart-topping millionaires, an unpredictability each side thinks they can flip with the right story arc. Outside the courtroom, streaming services preload response statements. Alcohol distributors pause new delay on marketing pushes until verdict. A single tweet from Bieber's wife triggers a 3-point swing in parent company stock. Twitter spaces bristle with legal watch parties, where influencer lawyers decode each ruling in 280 character bursts. Yet all this choreography, legal, corporate, digital, hinges on one irreversible choice made May 1st, the plea Diddy torch-tossed into history. Scenario A, guilty on major counts. Sentence 20 to 30 years minimum. Industry fallout, liquor distributors yank De Leon tequila from store end caps, Revolt TV rebrands or shutters. Streaming impact. TikTok declares bad boy tracks ineligible for new trend challenges, citing sensitive content. Bieber's legacy, overnight metamorphosis from tabloid heartthrob to whistleblower icon. Think 2020's answer to Rose McGowan. Academic ripples. Law schools add a Combs Doctrine module on celebrity NDAs and coercion economics. Scenario B, hung jury, split verdict. Sentence, mistrial on trafficking, lesser convictions on tax evasion adjacent counts. Industry fallout, both sides claim victory, TikTok trolls flood feeds with half-off bad boy memes. Streaming impact, Spotify reinstates mood playlist placements, but adds a contentious history footnote, similar to the one under Michael Jackson's catalog. Bieber's legacy, critics brand him a pawn, die-hard believers double down on hashtag he tried. Scenario C, not guilty on all counts. Sentence, walks free same day. Industry fallout, crisis PR firms circulate vindicated visionary press kits within the hour. Corporate partners quietly re-sign multi-year deals at bargain basement rates. Streaming impact, Bad Boy back catalog surges 300%. The Streisand effect with sub-bass. Bieber's legacy, narrative flips to overeager Gen Z moralist. Expect think pieces titled Pop Star Who Cried Wolf. Long-wave aftershocks, no matter the verdict. Legislative push, activists already draft Digital Consent Act, requiring biometric confirmation before any private filming. Celebrity NDAs in court. Judges nationwide study Supermanian's eventual evidentiary rulings as precedent on piercing confidentiality shields. Fan economy evolution. Patron saints can become pariahs in a single docket entry. Future fandoms may diversify emotional portfolios, standing multiple mid-tier creators instead of worshipping one mega icon. When the jury foreperson finally stands, maybe in 6 weeks, maybe 8, and reads whichever combination of guilty, not guilty, or can't agree, cameras will zoom on a single face. Yet the deeper story lingers far beyond that courtroom echo. Because win or lose, the Diddy saga rips open questions that won't fit back into designer suit pockets. How much privacy should any gathering buy with a signature and a phone pouch? At what point does lifestyle aesthetics morph into enterprise coercion? And if megastars can't shield their most exclusive nights from daylight, what does transparency look like for the rest of us? The gavel will fall, the playlists will adapt, the memes will mutate. But a cultural jury, millions strong, scrolling long after court adjourns, will still be out, deciding whether power can ever again hide anything behind a velvet rope.